Welcome back to Tie Down TV, the punk rock opinion show with me, Geoff.
I'm Danny.
And today we're picking our top 5 punk and hardcore albums from 2000 to 2009. So in that time period, what do you think of? What do you think about that?
Well, first off, we've got to say that this isn't part of our American hardcore series, is it?
No, this is from anywhere.
This is from anywhere, yeah. So yeah, I think that's important to note. But yeah, when I think of hardcore and punk in the 2000s, I'm thinking about a time I was cutting my teeth in the hardcore scene.
100%, yeah.
What do I think of, though, when I think of that time? Bridge 9, Trust Kill.
Yeah, Victory, I think of that like kind of turn of the 2000 when it went quite into that sort of like emo-y stuff that you know that got really popular.
Because in the early 90s it was brilliant. And,
early 2000s. That kind of switched, didn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, and I think of I can say them because I don't want to make any spoilers, but Righteous Jams, Terror, Brace War, Down to Nothing, all that, like all them types of bands, Scene Kids. That's all the stuff that's when I think of that's when I think of 2000s. A lot of different things coming from a lot of that encapsulated the 2000s. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And we're still there's a couple of bands I think whose impact we're still feeling the vibration from now. One band that in particular I've picked, I think a lot of bands still try and copy now. Yeah,
I think I've got one or two of that as well in my picks, but it's like for me, again, much like you said, so I turned 15 in the year 2000, so between 2000 and 2009, those sort of like 9 years, I was still only in my early to mid 20s, so a lot of what I cut my teeth on in getting into punk and hardcore and stuff is what came out around then. I think of pop punk. When I think of like 2001, 2002, it was huge, wasn't it? Like fucking huge, like, and obviously, like I say, that Victory Records, emo-y kind of scene kids, fringes, all that kind of stuff. And myself just like kind of like cutting my teeth, like we've discussed many times, haven't we? We came into hardcore at separate ends, really. So the stuff I was probably getting into...
It's more reflective in this list than probably any other lists, maybe?
Yeah, and maybe our 90s one as well. I picked a lot more punk stuff, which I kind of is a mixture here, a bit of punk and a bit of hardcore, but
It's also got to said, it's even though it was the time I started going to hardcore, it's definitely not my favourite period. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's definitely periods that I prefer to this time. Obviously, I've got, because it's my time, so to speak, it's always going to have like a place in my heart, but it's definitely not my favourite time for hardcore and punk.
Yes, I 100% the same, as we've discussed many times. We could both probably pinpoint where our respective favourite periods and eras are. But I've got a lot of love for a lot of stuff that came out in this time period as well. I actually struggled to narrow 5.
Well, one thing I like about this list, I didn't know what you'd picked and you didn't know what I picked till this was one list we knew we were going to pick completely different stuff. We knew. And we absolutely knew. So there was no correspondence before it. It was just a case of you turn up with what you've got, and I guarantee it won't be. And it was, and it's totally separate. They're totally different, and it does show you where I was at this time and where you were at this time. Definitely, 100%. So go on, get us underway with your first pick.
Then. So my first pick, I'm gone for Propagandhi. Today's Empires, Tomorrow's Ashes. This came out in 2001. This is a band that I did actually pick up their second album when we did our 90s one. These are a fucking huge band for me, huge. And especially this album, actually, because I just got into the band when this came out. This was kind of like the first new release that came out when I was aware of what they were doing. And this is like a transitional album, really, because their first album's it's coined as being the sound of Fat Wreck, like, because it was one of the first releases, etc., etc. Second album, a little bit more trying to go into this direction. This is the one where John K. Samson had left. Todd Kowalski came in on bass, who'd been in I Spy, stuff like that. And this is definitely goes harder, heavier. Song like Fuck the Border, for instance, which I believe Todd brought to the band, it's a straight up fucking raging, like a hardcore tune. But, they're influenced by like thrash and progressive thrash at times, I suppose, later on, Voivod, stuff like that. But like I say, this is very transitional. There's punk as they come. Obviously, they're politics and things, like they were talking about stuff I fucking wouldn't have even registered. Like, these are obviously well read on certain issues through the age. So regardless, again, if you agree or disagree with what they say, they definitely made me aware of certain issues. And like, I got this when it came out on CD originally, and had like it was a CDR, a DVR, like you put it in your PC, and there was loads of fucking like it'd take you to websites and play videos and stuff. But anyway, like back to like there's just like one of their biggest tunes obviously on here is Back to the Motor League. If you know the band, you probably know that tune. It's yeah, I mean, like lyrically, it's tearing apart like a lot of the scene. You know, uses lyrics like he says, "Play acting anarchists, mummy's little skinheads," referencing a couple of songs off the Bedtime for Democracy, Dead Kennedy's album, Chicken Shit Conformists, and what's the one, Trying for the Swill, when he says, what have we here? 15 years later, it still reeks of swill and chicken shit conformists. And, you know, at the time, that's what I guess Propagandhi were going fucking hard. Whatever, you know, what they believed in, that's what they sang about. They were antagonistic. But as I say, 16, 17 years old, and this came out, it fucking blew my mind. And I still play this band a lot to this day, especially this is my favourite album I think they released, probably. So that's my first pick.
My first pick, I think everyone would agree, in the hardcore realm, that this is a classic of early 2000s, without a doubt. Canadian, from Toronto, No Warning, Ill Blood. Now, this is like as angry a record as you're ever likely to hear. Now, I used to, when I was around that, we were around the same age. I think I'm
a couple of months older than me, about half a year.
Yeah, but like, remember going to work when one of my old jobs in around 2005, and I went through a period of listening to this on the bus there every time, and by the time I got to work, I was so angry. And the amount of times I'd clash with the manager and stuff because I was so wound up listening to Ill Blood.
Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, it's so pissed off, and it's so fucking... The song Sure Fuse, like the first time I come across these, we make a hold of the Hellfest 2002 DVD. Hellfest, when Hellfest was a hardcore festival, when they just seemed to put on hardcore, and we watched that DVD so much. And one of the segments on it was No Warning playing Short Fuse, and that's a fucking great song. You should go and listen to Short Fuse. I mean, don't do it, and you know, if you've got plans and you're going to go out and have a good time with someone, because you will be wound up after listening to that tune. And yeah, that it got me, because I blame this album for getting me into a lot of conflicts in work, because like I say, I was getting so fucking wound up playing this all the time. Their first EP is also great. This was released on Bridge 9, I think that might have been 2. But then after this, they released an album, I think it was called Suffer Survive or something. And I don't know what happened, and I'm not exaggerating here, but it sounds like Linkin Park. Like honestly, there was like a massive shift in sound.
Yeah.
And I remember when it come out, and I remember the video came on Kerrang or something.
Alright.
And it was like I was like, what?
Yeah.
And I was like, this is No Warning. What the fuck's going on? And like, it was just. I mean, I'm presuming they've released records again since then. I'm presuming they went back to their original sound. I've never really listened to much after this. I listened to the album after this, heard how bad it was, and then never really bothered them again. But everyone knows this is a cornerstone. This is like a classic. Everything about it's amazing. And yeah, I seen him recently actually on the internet playing 2024, and I don't know if it's just because he's got a bit older, or if it's but the singer sounded different to me. You know, his voice. And I know singers' voices will change as they get older, but I think he's got quite a really unique and pissed off vocal. But when I watched this footage of him playing live, it was only like last week I think he played on this footage I watched.
Yeah,
he sounded a bit shot and like it wasn't really him.
Okay, I
don't know if it's the same vocalist, but yeah, if you've never checked out No Warning, definitely this is the one to go to. It is the fucking classic of theirs.
Cool. Alright, pick number 2 for me. I've gone for Punish and Destroy by Weekend Nachos. So this was their debut release. They're obviously power violence band pretty much, but their sound, even here, like you'd probably say they've done better albums, and I would agree, but this is the one I always listen to. So this is my favourite. Whether it's their best is, it's all subjective really, but the sound is still quite fully formed, I think, on here, but it's obviously fast, sharp tempo shifts like you expect with power violence, drops into some fucking heavy sludgy riffs as well sometimes, and just straight up like kind of two-stepping hardcore sound as well. It's very varied, but it's so good. Like, I think if you wanted maybe an accessible entrance into power violence, maybe if you were into a bit of hardcore and that, this could be your way in, because it has got a little bit, it's not as, That's the word I'm looking for. Fucking some power violence band, obviously, it's just it's fucking daunting, isn't it? And like if it's but yeah, I think this is like it'll be a good go in. But anyway, and I know they split up. I think they've been doing shows again recently. I'd love to see this band. So if they ever came over to the UK, it'd be fucking amazing. But you should definitely check these out. You've never heard Weekend Nachos, and like I say, this is my favourite. But check out most of the stuff. Is fucking good. To be fair, really good. So yeah, that's my second pick.
My second pick, I have gone Bitter End Climate of Change. These guys, I think, are from Texas. Saw these live around 2006 or 7 in the Star and Garter in Manchester. I believe they might have played with Pale Horse or someone like that. I can't remember. But yeah, they were great. They blew me away because they were so New York sounding.
Okay.
I thought they were a New York band at first, found out later they were from Texas. Very influenced by your Cro-Magses and bands like that. This is a great record. It's become a bit of a classic now. I see a lot of people, when they talk about this period of time, this often gets spoken about as a bit of a classic at the time, and it is great. And they were amazing. I remember watching them live, and they're amazing. Put everything into it, jumping all around, you know what I mean? The album after this, Guilty as Charged, is also amazing. Yeah, can't really say much more. It's on the Malfunction label. Bands like Internal Affairs and stuff. A lot of good stuff on that label. So yeah, Bitter End, Climate of Fear. And I've also seen as well. Now, that you could say that's kind of like, it reminds me a little bit of the Just Look Around cover, Sick of It All.
Yeah.
But I've seen this like ripped off quite a lot since this, by other bands, this kind of cover. And I'm pretty sure there's a band now as well called Climate of Fear.
Probably.
So that shows how inspirational that's been.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, pick number 3 for me. I've gone for document number 8 by Pageninetynine. So if you're familiar, this is a band who I think it's quite hard to actually categorise, but they get called Screamo. Now, when I say Screamo, I know that's a fucking dirty word.
I've never heard of that.
But this is real, what people consider like more real Screamo. And you have all the bands like Orchid and Circle Takes the Square, City of Caterpillar, stuff like that. I think that kind of tie into a lot of this. But this is fucking blistering. Like, it's like cacophonous, but it's also got like melody in there. So it opens, actually, the first song, In Love with Her Apparitions, opens with a sample of Kurt Cobain talking. And he says, punk rock means freedom, means liking what you want to like, listening to what you want to listen to, and playing what you want to play. Doesn't matter how sloppy and raw it is, as long as it's full of passion and it's good. Paraphrased a little bit, I'm sure, but I kind of think that sums this band up, because their spirit, their attitudes, DIY, they were punk as fuck, but their sound shifted, moved, they've got a lot of releases. I think they've only got 2 or 3 full albums, but they've, like a lot of bands, that kind of, what's the other subgenre they get called is, and you'll love this one, emo violence. Oh, that makes me shudder when someone says that. But so obviously, like, the sounds of power violence, emotional lyrics, and I guess it fits. But it's very passionate, very fast paced, very fucking noisy, shifts in tempos. I fucking love this album, love this band, love a lot of this kind of stuff. I don't think maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know if it's that popular anymore. It probably is, because this stuff has been reissued quite recently. But for me, if you've not heard this kind of stuff, like I'd recommend maybe this as being your starting point. Pageninetynine, document number 8.
My next pick, from Baltimore, a lot of amazing bands out of Baltimore. I could list them forever. Do you know what I mean? When you think about it, Baltimore had some amazing bands, but I've gone Trapped Under Ice, Secrets of the World. Now, I think it's easy now to forget just how massive these were at the time. These were a bit of a game changer in hardcore, I think. I mean, the reason I say that is because when you think of the early 2000s and a lot of the sounds that were coming out in terms of hardcore and punk, it was kind of like it was a lot of amazing stuff, but it was kind of like we'd heard it all before.
Yeah.
I feel like Trapped Under Ice kind of like moved the goalpost a little bit with their sound, and I think the reason why it's easy to realise how big they were at the time is I think a lot of our bands now are still playing the Trapped Under Ice formula.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like there's so many bands now. Like someone will say, "Have you heard these new bands?" And I'll just think, sounds to me like they're just trying to sound like Trapped Under Ice. Loads of bands like that. Do you know what I mean? And I just hear loads of these modern bands now. I hear them, and I'll just be like, that just sounds like it's trying to, it just sounds like Trapped Under Ice. Mm-hmm. And I've got to say as well, like, I was a big fan of Stay Gold when it came out, the EP, and and the demo, amazing. And also the split with Dirty Money was great as well.
Money's good.
But one thing I've got to say, I've got a little bit of a story about Trapped Under Ice, and it's also got a question. This is going to lead to a question for the people out there in Tied Down TV land. So basically, it happens very rare, but occasionally there's a pit, isn't there, that is just a little bit too rough for you. Do you know what I mean? Where you're like, I want none of that shit. Well, right, so these played in Liverpool well before they were anything. Do you know what I mean? He played with Lion of Judah. Our mate Pat Sharp opened that gig, and it was in a tiny venue in Corova, very small, you know, and it went off moderately. Right, I seen him a couple of years later when this came out in, I think it was Sound Control in Manchester. They supported Madball, right, and I remember getting up to the front, right, and it had a bit of a raised stage, that venue, and he started, and but no joke, by the end of the first song, I've been punched in the face twice, kicked in the bollocks, thrown over someone's fucking, like a Bobo in Double Dragon, someone just gone like that and threw me over their shoulder. Honestly, it was rough. It was rough. A couple of my mates were stood by the bar. I literally crawled back to them and was like, no thank you. That is fucking ridiculous. It was insanely violent. And I just stood at the back and enjoyed it from the back. It was that insane. And that was Trapped Under Ice in fucking Manchester. So that's a question I've got to put to the people. Be honest. We don't all have to be tough guys all the time. Name me one pit where you've kind of been in at the beginning, or you've seen and you've just gone, I want none of that shit. It's a bit too fucking much. Be honest and put it in the comments.
Nice. Alright, pick number 4 for me. I've gone Against Me as Reinventing Axl Rose. The debut album came out in 2002 on No Idea Records. So I know this band became very popular at one point in the sort of 2007, 2008 time, with new wave. Very commercial, polished sound. This is anything but that. This is like punk, folk punk, and anarcho punk kind of all mixed in. Very obviously anarchist lyrics. You know, the songs like Baby I'm an Anarchist, and obviously some of their biggest tunes still now are off this. I think this is still their most popular album. It is their fucking best album. It's so good, fronted by Laura Jane Grace. It was an important album for me anyway, as they were an important band for me at the time. Much like I said about Propagandhi as well, you know, the politics they were singing about, I'd not really ever, not to this like kind of degree of maybe clarity and intellect behind what they were saying. I just love it. It even like it's DIY, the production on it is good but not at the same time, if that makes sense. Like the dynamics are all over the place at times. Their voice, it's so full of fucking rage and passion sometimes though. But it just it slaps every time I hear it. Yeah, fucking straight away from that opening kind of Pints Against Make You Strong, right through to the end of 8 Full Hours of Sleep. I don't think there's a bad tune on here. I think, yeah, check it out again. If all you've heard of Against Me is the sort of like mid and late 2000s stuff, you need to go back and check out some of this stuff then, because it fucking blows a lot of that out the water. But there you go, Axl Rose by Against Me.
Now, I've always said to you, haven't I, that when it comes to beatdown hardcore, there's bands who have beatdowns and then there's bands who specialise in beatdown hardcore.
Yeah.
I've said it to you, it's like one of my little phrases, that's how I feel about it. And I think it's really made a comeback in recent times. Like, there's a lot of metallic hardcore out there that,
yes, but
to me, I listen to it, and to me it's not what I'd call specialist beatdown hardcore at all. No. But I think in the early 2000s, you know, there was a few bands who were really like flying that flag for like that mid 90s kind of Bulldoze, Denied, you know, 2x4 kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I was torn between two to pick. One was going to be Billy Club Sandwich with the album Chin Music, but I've gone for this because I do think this is the better album. This is a band from Pittsburgh. They're called Built Upon Frustration. This album is called Resurrected, and it is one of the hardest fucking records you will ever hear. The beatdowns are amazing, and like I say, they do play that old school traditional beatdown sound, and they do it well. And yeah, I do think actually that this, I mean, a lot of that stuff's really hard to get, but I do believe this is still somewhat available. I know they've got a couple of albums. This is on D'accord Records, but yeah, this is you need, I know a lot of kids come up to, a lot of like younger guys like often ask me to recommend them beatdown bands, and we've spoke about doing a beatdown video, but you're not into beatdown, so it'd be hard to do a full video of that. But one of the lesser known beatdown bands that I'd recommend to anyone who wants to, you know, find out more, less obvious ones. Built Upon Frustration are definitely a really good, really good way to go with that. So yeah, Resurrected, Built Upon Frustration.
Nice. So final pick for me. I've gone for, this was the first record straight away when we said we were doing
now,
this.
Now, before you lift that up, this is a band that really, even though they've been around a lot longer than the 2000s, this really epitomises the 2000s for me.
100%, yeah, same,
really does.
Same. So I've gone You Fail Me by Converge.
Yeah.
Now, I know what you're probably all thinking. The one that kind of epitomises the 2000s is Jane Doe. And I will hands down agree, that's their masterpiece. It's the best piece of work they've done.
So why have you picked that?
Because that's my favourite.
Alright.
That's the difference. There's two. There could be two different things to make it. What I can see, like the artwork of Jane Doe, the songs, all of it, all flow. It's an amazing piece of art. But so's this. But this is the one I go back to more. And I think maybe it's just slightly more variation in things. It's still fucking raging and angry. Now, when you said before about a lot of bands that came after them imitated, I mean, hello.
Yeah.
These are imitated fucking left, right and centre. Like, I don't even think of these really as being a metalcore band, but they get called metalcore, and every metalcore band who came out after them tried to sound like them, I think. Again, you hear a lot of it, like you saying before about Trapped on the Ice. You hear a lot of, you're just like a bad version of that, or Converge.
I mean, I don't think these bands are a bad version of Trapped Under Ice.
Oh, right.
I just hear a lot of what Trapped Under Ice were doing in like 2008.
I mean, to be fair, metalcore's not really my thing anyway, so I could just be listening to it through biased ears. But anyway, back to this. Fucking amazing. So this was the first album we did on Epitaph, which they're still on now. And they're not the kind of band that you associate with Epitaph, but that's where they're at. This is it was remastered, remixed by the guitarist Kurt Ballou, who's, after this album, I think has produced everything they've done. So he wanted to go back, he wasn't quite happy with the sound of the original recording of it. But fuck me, man, it's the first proper song I make. It starts with like an intro, First Light, then it goes into Last Light. It's dead melodic, but it's got this amazing amount when you see them live and they play it, and it does this. This is for the heart, still beating, and the whole room screaming it. It's fucking unreal. And then straight after that, Black Cloud, which is right back to that sort of growling, raging Converge. That song. You've got thingies on it as well, and Eagles Become Vultures, fucking amazing song. Hope Street, all ripping and raging, and then a song like Inner Shadow, which is like a slow burner, starts really like somber, almost acoustic, spoken singing, and it just builds and builds. It's very tense, but yeah, I think just like say, this is my favourite Converge album, and like you say, although they began like 93-ish, I think, all their best work for me personally pretty much came out from Jane Doe onwards, and they hit their stride there, and yeah, they epitomised the 2000s. That's why I saved it for last, but also because it is one of my favourites. You Fail Me, Converge.
So, when you think of like early 2000s, and you think of like what I would call the generic hardcore sound, Terror, Throwdown, Hatebreed, like that. Who else? First Blood, all that type of stuff. There was a good band from Holland called Born from Pain. They played that style pretty well, actually, especially on the second album, Sands of Time. However, a band who I kind of think played that style better than a lot of them bands that kind of flew under the radar was this band and this album, Welcome to Memphis, by the band Clench Fist. Now, this is very similar to that kind of sound that you would associate them bands with. But these are, I mean, you know what? When I was picking my list for this particular episode, and I pulled everything out from that, I pulled it all out, and I seen this, and I thought, fucking hell! I was like, that was a great record back in the day, that, and I put it on, and you know what?
Holds up.
Yeah, I mean, apart from Satisfaction Is the Death of Desire by Hatebreed, which to me does still hold up. Look, Lowest of the Low by Terror was a great record at the time, as was One with the Underdogs. And California, even by First Blood, I enjoyed that when I was younger. But Satisfaction of the Death of Desire, it's held up on it. Like, I'll listen to that and I'll still go, oh, this is a great record. I put this on, the other day, and I was just like, this is fucking brilliant still. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? And it really is. It's one of them albums, even though it's got that generic kind of sound, I guess, you don't get bored. You don't get bored.
Yeah.
There's enough variation in the songwriting to make you go, you know, eating. Yeah, do you know what I mean? And then it's got them real bits in it where it'll break down, and then it's not like beat downs, but you know, it'll have breakdown bits in it where you're like, oh, that's hit the spot. You know, really fucking underrated band, I think. This is from 2000. I actually thought it was from earlier than that. It says 2007 here. I thought it was early 2000s, but yeah. I'd recommend anyone who's into that, like any people who are starting out, it's a gateway for a lot of people, that kind of stuff, isn't it? Definitely check out Clench Fist, Welcome to Memphis, because it's fucking great.
Nice. So what's your honourable mention?
I'm going to bring some melody in it. I'm going to go Bane, Give Blood.
Nice. A little Converge connection as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am going to go with, what should I do? I'm going to pick The Argument by Fugazi.
Fugazi again?
Yeah, why not?
Got to fit him in, haven't you?
Yeah. So thanks for watching anyway, and don't forget, like, subscribe, give that bell a ring, jump over on Instagram, Facebook, you know what to do. If you want to send us a message, give us a like, give us a follow, please. See you next